everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers kick off an Anthony Davis-less stretch of games tonight in Washington. How will they respond without Davis in the lineup? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 27,000 subscribers are all hanging out and wondering what the Lakers are going to do without Anthony Davis for at least a week, probably a little longer, perhaps even, Andy, all the way up to the All-Star break. There is certainly the possibility that AD could miss that amount of time. That would be 7 games, but he's certainly going to miss the next 4 or so. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we talked a little bit about this on some of the emergency pod on Wednesday, but like the amount of questions, Andy, that get raised by this are huge. Starting, there's who actually, like, where do the Lakers make up at least some of the offense that Davis provides? There's the impact of the trade deadline. And then there's the larger question of just how much time he's going to miss, because I guess that one influences all of it. I mean, it's not good. None of it's good.
For what it is worth, remember my initial response to hearing that they were going to reevaluate him in a week, and obviously with announcing there will be a reevaluation in a week comes the public part of this, because everyone's going to be waiting to hear. That struck me as relatively optimistic news, just because if they were concerned that this could be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe closing on 2 months, there is no point in even giving people hope that this could be a week to 10 days with the reevaluation. Like, you would just say, we're going to reevaluate them in 3 weeks. Like, you don't ever set up intentionally, at least, people for disappointment. Dave McMenamin, who covers Lakers for ESPN, he was on my weekly ESPN 710 show, Lakers Talk, tonight. And for what it's worth, he is sensing internal optimism as well, that this could be something that's like a week-ish, but that so far the organization is not overly concerned about this turning into something that is a very extended absence.
Dan Wakey at the Times sent out similar information today over Twitter. And, so I think, we talked a little bit about the schedule of like what is there. And, a week to 10 days takes you through the Indiana game a week from Saturday. Like, that would be, probably the very earliest he could come back. And once you get there, you've got 2 games against Utah, and then it's the All-Star break. And so, there's a lot to consider here. Like, if he's close, but, not, you're maybe risking a little bit, to play the 2 games against Utah. Like, all things considered, do you let him sit those? You also have to keep in mind the Lakers now have extra games when they come out, because they have to make up the games that were rescheduled because of the wildfires. Like, there is, they're going to have some stretches that are even, a difficult second half schedule. It's going to be even more compressed in a lot of ways because of that. So I think, at least for me, between your instincts, which I agree with, what you're hearing, sort of those early things, and the way the schedule lays out, which is he can get a week off just with the All-Star break. It appears that the Lakers, at least right now, may have dodged a bit of a bullet. Like, it certainly could be worse on its face right now.
I mean, here's the thing, though. If you want to turn the All-Star break into an actual break for Anthony Davis, then you may have to eat the games against Utah, because that's how you make him plausibly unavailable for the All-Star game.
Oh, I think the Lakers, if they get close. But here's the thing. you can maybe do that. Like let's say they win tonight and they take one of the next 4 games, and I don't think that's guaranteed. The Knicks on Saturday is going to be a beast of a game. The Knicks are very good. The Clippers, I don't know if people saw what the Clippers did to the Spurs in the fourth quarter on Wednesday night, but it was surgical and impressive and kind of frightening with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. That is a tall order game to win.
How many Spurs were sitting out because they didn't want those players to get injured for an eventual De'Aaron Fox trade, though?
No, they were all playing.
Oh,
they were all there. The Pacers are playing extremely well right now. They're kind of quietly moving up in a fairly open Eastern Conference. But if you can win one of those games, now, if you go and you even just split those last games against Utah, you're 3-4 in this 7-game stretch, and it's not a disaster. It's not a calamity. You're not going to collapse in the conference standings because of that. And you can kind of afford to give AD those last couple games and then another week after that. It's sort of incumbent on his teammates to provide him the space to get as much rest as possible.
Well, he's been doing a lot of heavy lifting this season, and at times, dare I say, certainly in Tuesday's game against the Hornets, flat out carrying their asses. Like, you could argue they owe this to AD. Like, you know what, man? You've been doing a lot for us this season, big fella. Why don't we repay the favor and, I don't know, beat the Wizards without you?
Yeah,
but I feels like the least we can do for you, my man.
It is, but the Wizards game is even getting complicated because the injury report for the Lakers for tonight's game is crowded. Rui has been upgraded to probable, but everybody else, Dorian Finney-Smith is suddenly questionable with a shoulder contusion. LeBron,
which is different than the ankle injury that has led to Dorian Finney-Smith being on, if not a minutes limit, certainly a minutes monitoring, which maybe has even gotten in the way of him becoming a starter in place of Rui. But this is a separate deal from what's been capping his amount of time on the floor.
Yep.
This is brand new.
So that ain't good. And Gabe Vincent, still questionable. They are potentially short on folks. And look, the Washington Wizards are a catastrophically bad basketball team. It's not, but the distinction here is important because one of the things I'm writing, people who sign up for the newsletter, the Locked On Daily newsletter, will see is that this is the time that if you're going to pretend to be a good basketball team, the Lakers are going to have to execute their way through these games that AD doesn't play. That means your talent level may go down, but you are a well-coached, well-run group of smart basketball players who know how to do the right thing and don't check out mentally for giant stretches of games. And so you can execute your way past a team like Washington, which has lots of bouncy athletes and whatever, but are a lousy basketball team. Go be a good basketball team, even if your talent level is low. Even if LeBron doesn't play in this game, the execution level for the Lakers against a team like Washington should, if you think you're a good team, should be good enough to do better than they did against Philadelphia. That's for damn sure.
I agree with you up to a certain point. I think without LeBron, if say LeBron didn't play in this game, I have concerns that the Lakers might not be able to have things to execute, much less execute them well, just because you start turning into an exceptionally perimeter-oriented team with no real balance and, Austin Reeves being left to run everything. Like,
it would be very helpful if those other guys played.
Right. I'm just saying, the Wizards just got beat down by the Toronto Raptors 106-82 tonight at home. The Wizards have won 5 games at home. You are not overstating just how crappy they are. But if you are talking about a Lakers team with no LeBron, potentially at least, no LeBron, no Anthony Davis, no Gabe Vincent, like maybe no Dorian.
If all those other guys don't play, it's different.
Like, it becomes legitimately difficult for them to execute. It just does.
Okay, that's fair. But I'm assuming, like, let's say LeBron doesn't, the other guys do. The point I'm making here, and we can carry this into the next segment, is just this question of how do the Lakers get through this stretch? Because you had your show tonight. I did Spectrum, the Lakers TV station. I was their media guest, and we talked a lot about this. Like, what exactly is it that the Lakers can do? Where do they make up for the loss of AD? How do they try to compensate? And I think the answer might be slightly different than people think, at least my answer. And we'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by TurboTax. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get a real-time update on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates, only on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
So we were asked on the show, Andy, Wednesday when I did it, like, how do the Lakers compensate defensively? Like, where do they make up for the loss of AD? And like, my answer is, for defense, is like, okay, guys can play. Everybody's got to play really hard. You can't be lazy getting over a screen. You have to remember your assignments. Again, attention to detail, focus, whatever. I think the big place that you actually try to compensate for the loss of Anthony Davis is on the other end. I think it's with your offense. I think it's by not, now the focus is no bad turnovers. It is really executing the offense so that your shots, whether they go in or don't, are done in rhythm and they're done in balance so that you're not off kilter on the other end. You're not trying to, you don't have cross matchups. You're not being beaten transition. And then you got to figure out where to make up the 30-ish points a game that AD provides you just to make you a pretty bad offensive team. It's not like they, if they don't get those 30 points, they go from like 6th to 18th. They go from like 27th to off the grid, if they can't. So I think it's offense where they have to try to make this up more than defense.
If you are anybody other than LeBron James or Austin Reeves and you throw a hit-ahead pass, you should be fined $500. And even if you are honestly LeBron or Austin Reeves.
And that includes, by the way, Bronny, who technically does fit with your definition of LeBron James.
Bronny, that's a grand. That's a grand. After, we went through this on Wednesday's full show. I think the uproar, and I think you agree, the uproar over Bronny stepping on the court was way, way over the top. If you can't figure out why this happened, frankly, you're not paying attention. That being said, it was a disaster. He can't throw a hit-ahead pass. I would go so far as to say even LeBron might get fined $100. Like, just I don't.
You got to be careful. You
got to be so careful.
You have to be. There are no style points. Like, they need to play quickly. They need to be leverage advantage against a team like Washington, especially, that is bad, that is tends to be, bad teams often lazy. There are, even when they're playing hard, a lot of their players are very young and will be in the wrong spots, whatever it is. Like, you have to press advantages quickly, see things and do things quickly, get into your offense quickly. But that doesn't mean you do reckless things. And so the Lakers need to be really careful. And then, like, where do those 30 points come from? And I think some of it's LeBron, obviously. A chunk of it is Austin Reeves, obviously. Like, he goes from a guy that, 17 on some nights for AR is fine, especially if it comes with 5 rebounds, 8 assists, low turnovers, like, plays a really good game, and AD and LeBron are doing their thing. Well, okay, now it's got to be 20 plus a night no matter what. Okay, Max Christie, no more first halves where you don't score. Like, that can't happen. Dalton Connect needs to be, this guy rather than the guy who was shooting 17% or whatever from 3-point range for a month. Like, that's all stuff that's sort of got to happen. I don't see how the Lakers, other than trying really hard, can compensate on defense in a meaningful way without Davis. That just doesn't seem possible to me.
Another big one, Rui needs more shots. I mean,
I keep forgetting. Yeah, absolutely.
For all of the talk about Rui's inconsistencies, or, he's now expendable in this new post DFS, post Jared Vanderbilt world, which you and I don't totally agree with. But if you think Rui is expendable, part of it's because he's not making the impact that you think he should be making. And a big piece of that is he doesn't get enough shots. Like, he is in January still shooting like 50% from the field. His 3-point percentage is a little bit down at 34, but that's not terrible. On the season, he is shooting 49% from the field, 41% from behind the arc. If you want more than 12 points a game from Rui, it's become very clear. Dude needs the ball more. Like, he just does.
Yeah. But to your point, though, the good news is there will be more shots available. Like,
yes,
because it's not just the points that are missing, it's the shots. And, Rui is one of those guys who is capable of creating a little bit against the right defender. We will aggressively put the ball on the floor and go try to score. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like, this is one of those situations where if you need the offense to keep some juice or try to sustain itself, well, he's one of your better offensive players. And so this is a Rui Hachimura time to shine. I don't think there's any question about that.
This gets back a little bit to what we were talking about too, with like the hit ahead passes and no turnovers and things like that. They need to accept the idea that they're going to have to play for 48 minutes. And I don't even mean like play hard for 48 minutes, execute for 48 minutes, all of which they do. I mean that it's literally a 48-minute game, and the idea of trying to bury a team by 1.5 quarters to where you can basically coast from there. And, when you start having that goal, you start kind of looking for shortcuts and start looking for the quick early 3 or just like ways to snowball. No, you're going to have to go out there and play an actual full game. Because we've talked about this before. It has often felt like this is, I think, frankly, a LeBron thing, but it can be a whole team thing where they would just as soon get the game over with a win. They want to win it, but they would like to limit the amount that they actually have to play to as little time as possible. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, if you attempt to shortcut that, particularly with this team's lack of discipline when they ever get an early lead, all you're doing is eventually inviting this opponent back into the game and making it so you have to play 35 minutes a night anyway. Like, if they really want to try to turn this into a night where LeBron plays 30 minutes as opposed to 36, be methodical about this thing. Don't try to deliver a knockout in the 18th minute. Like, that's a guaranteed recipe for this turning into LeBron playing 38 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do. Before we go to the break, you mentioned Bronny, and like I don't know. I guess I was surprised, but the level of anger about his minutes, not just locally but nationally. Stephen A. Smith on ESPN pleading with LeBron. I mean, theatrical and all that, but pleading with LeBron as a father, stop this, stop this, and all of this stuff going on, like, as if I agree with you, like the fact that the Lakers were without Gabe Vincent, don't have another healthy guard like available to it. I think the argument you can make, and I think JJ got to this in how he talked about Bronny. I do appreciate that he didn't try to sugarcoat like Bronny's performance. He's like, he didn't play well, and he didn't. And
there's not enough sugar in the world.
No, the coaches will do that. You know, they'll try to be.
I know.
Play well. And what my biggest criticism of all of it was just that, and Redick got to, like, he's like, I don't think I did right by my player. Like, I put him in an unfair position. I think the Lakers are, you know, Redick is in an unfair position because he doesn't have enough players to fill that, you know, that need. But they tried to sneak him in, hoping, I think, that the minutes would be, because remember, they were winning when he got on the floor. I think they were up by 9. Like, we can get away with 5 or 6 minutes here, 5 or 6 minutes in the second half, and hopefully not lose too much. Now, this is before they knew AD was out of the game and all that other stuff. But that said, while he's played well in the G League, and, you know, given more time and, you know, into next season and all that stuff, we'll see what happens. And if he can build up the confidence and the skill set, he's clearly not ready for meaningful minutes in an NBA game. And I think they were hoping they could steal some, but it was unfair to the player. And it's particularly unfair contextually when that player is Bronny James.
There's one more thing I want to add to that. We'll get into it coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. I love live events, sports, music, comedy, theater. One of my most fun memories of 2024 was going to Hamilton on Broadway last spring with my family. It was a really, really great show. My daughter got to meet the entire cast basically after the show, took a bunch of selfies with them, autographs. They're all really, really nice. And it was just a fun experience. And it's easier to do something like that with Game Time because they make it easier to get tickets to your favorite events. Use a feature like Game Time Picks that filters out all of the fluff and the confusing verbiage and thousands of tickets or whatever you're sifting through. You just see incredible deals on great seats, and that's all you want anyway. They've got features like panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what it's going to be like when you're inside the venue, and the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at the checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Two quick things on the Bronny issue, and then we can just put it to bed, or the Bronny debate. One, as far as like JJ Redick's lack of options, which we went through all the guards that aren't available. Vando wasn't available, who can handle the ball in a pinch if you really needed it. Shake Milton has been basically unplayable. He has not scored a basket since January 2nd. I've seen a few people push back with the idea of, if you wanted energy and defense, JJ could have gone with Cam Reddish earlier as an option. I think that is fair. It is worth noting that Cam's ball handling can be shaky. The scoring has been shaky, and JJ has given Cam a lot of opportunity. I mean, Cam was starting earlier in the season, but I think that is fair. Even if, again, we both understand why JJ ultimately decided to go.
And I think, and also to just say, I think some of it's matchup based. You're trying to find somebody who can a little more agile to run around with Maxey. But yeah, I agree. It's absolutely a fair criticism.
I think that is, again, I understand JJ's thought process, and again, the idea that this was like LeBron creating pressure or like clutch shorts, national TV.
If Gabe Vincent was healthy, Bronny James would not be. If Jalen Hood-Schifino was healthy, Bronny wouldn't have been in that. Wouldn't have been. That's
just silly. The one thing, and I want to stress, I do not know this to be the case, but I was wondering when I saw some quotes from Bronny after the game. Bronny said that just being called up at all took him by surprise. It was not something that he expected. And then he was just trying to stay in the moment, trying to stay ready. But just the idea that he was even going to be with the team was unexpected. It got me wondering whether or not JJ actually gave Bronny a heads up before the Philly game. Hey, there's a 0% chance you're going to play. So
that part, he was, because remember, he was recalled before. I mean, I think he was absolutely. I think when he got there, they told him be ready.
I don't
go play.
I don't know. I'm saying though, if he did not, that would be a mistake by Redick.
It's a mistake, but I also think Bronny is not a stupid kid. Gabe Vincent is hurt. That's why you're being called up. Jalen Hood-Schifino is hurt. That's why you're being called up. And you were called up 2 days earlier to meet the team. And if you can't figure out, and again, I think he probably told him that be ready. You might need you to play. If he doesn't show up with the attitude or with the idea, it's pretty blatantly obvious that you might need. I don't.
Is it though? I mean, considering the amount of people that
Absolutely.
seemed shocked by the idea that Bronny was playing, I don't know if it's that obvious. I'm being honest. I don't,
because I think it's pretty obvious because you're out of guard stuff. But I would assume that they talked to him before the game.
I don't.
But I also think I think some of this is fairly self-evident.
Whether we find it self-evident or not, I think for somebody like Bronny in particular, you can't treat it as self-evident.
That's fine.
If that happened. Again, to be clear, I don't know that it's
not all the way with you on that. I agree. I mean, I understand what you're getting at. I'm not all the way there on that one. But I look at where they are. What's interesting to me about the Bronny episode is less Bronny, because I would have loved for him to play better. Just for him, because he gets the pile-on is tremendous. But what's interesting is the how it reflects the situation that the Lakers are in, which is if Gabe Vincent can't play, they don't have another guard. They don't have anybody else who can do these things. And even when he can, they're really short on ball handling and playmaking and all this other stuff. So when you have differing priorities, and Dan Wakey, the Times has a really good story that came out on Wednesday about where the Lakers are in terms of their approach to the trade deadline, which is 8 days away. And does Davis's injury increase the need to go get another big and all these other things? It really, to me, pointed out that the Lakers have multiple issues, and this idea that the center is the only thing that they need to address, or that they need to overpay, or they need to do it. Bronny James was the symptom, not the disease. JJ Redick got too cute, and I don't think did his player any favors by putting him in this situation. I think he sort of hoped that the G League momentum that he had built up might carry over a little bit. But if they had a better constructed roster with a more diverse skill set, if they had, if Jalen Hood-Schifino was available, if they had figured out workarounds, if they had a different two-way guard, they cut Olivari to sign Jemison. Should they have maybe put that towards a different guy?
They could have cut Armel Traore.
They could have
Olivari.
They could have.
Which I was surprised, to be honest, they didn't do in the first place.
I get why, but
why. I'm just surprised.
But they also, Jemison is dressed for 2 games, I think, 1,
something like that.
And so.
I mean, they're trying to balance how many games they play Koloko before they're up against that limit, because they don't have any space to put him. I get all, and they don't want to lose him,
and they don't want to lose him, and I don't blame them. But they've sort of tried, and then they traded away their other guy. And so like when you leave yourself short, stuff like this can happen. And, and I don't think there's another 55th pick in the draft that would have necessarily been super ready to step in if the Lakers had used the pick on that person instead of Bronny. But either way, the player that they did have available to them because of the way they put the roster up very obviously had no business being there. And, it was an unfair position to put him in. And, but it's a result of the roster and not of Bronny or even Redick, I don't think.
Well, this also, though, gets to the idea of the Lakers identifying the needs and what is realistic to get. We've talked about before. I do not believe Walker Kessler is attainable. I know Miles Turner's name has popped up of late. I think he's probably more attainable than Kessler, but I would still be surprised, particularly given the way Indiana's played of late. But there are a lot of different areas that either need to be strengthened or flat out need to be just better. They're unacceptable right now. And it speaks to the idea that just because it's pretty clear Anthony Davis considers center the number one priority so he can move to power forward, his number one preference, that doesn't mean the Lakers have to abide by that or even should abide by that unless the center in question is so good you'd want him anyway.
Right.
And look, all franchises, much less the Lakers, who are among the more star-effery franchises in all of sports, all of them care what their stars want and try to make their stars happy because all franchises in all sports want stars. But stars don't always either know what is best for the overall picture or what they want can't be delivered. Like not for lack of effort, not because of incompetence by Rob Pelinka or whoever is running the organization. It's what you want is not attainable. And the Lakers have to do a good job identifying the needs and the targets. And if people don't have faith in Pelinka for that, that's fine. I understand where the lack of faith comes from. But it doesn't change the fact that Anthony Davis may have to accept the idea of what you want most not only may not be attainable, but may not actually make the sense to prioritize first.
There are very few. Like, look, Miles Turner comes available. That's somebody who makes sense for the price that it would cost. If Kessler becomes available, he's somebody who makes sense for the cost. I don't think either of those guys are going to become available. And to pay, if you have to pay starter cost for a player that can't play starter minutes,
or shouldn't,
you're setting yourself up for disaster, really, now and down the road. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 27,000 subscribers. We'll be back after the game. Make sure you sign up for that newsletter and check out the postcast with Dave Pele. We'll see everyone after the game.